Welcome all to Waynesboro City Council meeting. I call to order our meeting, and Mr. Allen, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. We thank you for being here and joining us tonight. For those that are in attendance this weekend and you wish to speak at one of our public hearings, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. I think there's 2 public hearings, so make sure you sign up for the public hearing you want to speak at. There's also a sign-up sheet in the back for our citizen comment period if you want to sign up for the citizen comment period. We have a little traffic light here. When it's green, you're free to speak. That light will stay green for about 3.5 minutes. Then it will turn yellow. You've got about 30 seconds of yellow, then it will turn red. Once it turns red, we ask that you respect the other members in the audience here, leave the podium, close up, leave the podium, and then let somebody else come up. Each member gets 4 minutes to speak. And while 4 minutes might not seem like much, when you're standing at that podium, it's a lifetime. All right, so item number 3 is to adopt the meeting agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the meeting agenda tonight? Do we have a motion to adopt the meeting agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hosstetter. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Item 4 is matters for mayor. I've got a couple of things tonight because we've got some good things going on in our city right now. Waynesboro City Council, and I'm speaking on behalf of all of our members tonight, would like to congratulate Mark Graver, who's our former building inspector, has been promoted now to our building official. So we want to congratulate him on that and wish him well in his new position. We also want to thank Joe Homberger for his many years of dedicated service and wish him well during his retirement. Joe's retired once and come back, but I think now that we've got his replacement, he's probably going to stay retired and enjoy retirement. And then one other thing that I have, and then I'll turn it over to the other council members, is we got some exciting news just last week. 2021 direct visitor spending in the city of Waynesboro reached $6.9 million. Might not sound anything without context, so let me give it a little bit of context here. I got a media release on this, and it says, according to the economic impact analysis produced by the Virginia Tourism Corporation in partnership with Tourism Economics Director, visitor spending in the city of Waynesboro reached $66.9 million in 2021. This represents a 41.6% increase over 2020, which we would hope to see something over 2020. But the most important part here is it's a 10.4% increase over 2019, pre-COVID. Making 2021 a significant year in the recovery from the COVID pandemic for the city. The local tourism industry supported 731 jobs, while the state tourism-related tax revenue totaled $5.3 million. Now, the numbers for us were really good when it goes further to say that Virginia tourism for statewide only recovered 87% during this year. So the fact that the state recovered 87% and we were 10% over what we were in 19 says a lot about the progress we're making within our city. Jennifer Kaiser, our tourism and marketing manager, our beautiful settings, great location, fantastic amenities made Waynesboro and the entire Shenandoah Valley a haven for travelers from urban areas in the midst of the pandemic. Tourism marketing manager, she's the tourism marketing manager. The opening of new dining establishment, shops, and recreational opportunity throughout the pandemic shows resilience in our community and brought tourism within our region. So I want to thank our economic development, our city staff, and everyone that made this possible. You did a great job and brought us out of the pandemic, and we're looking pretty good here. That's all I have. Item number 5 is matters from council members. Who wants to start us out?
I will, Mr. Mayor. On Tuesday, Mayor Henderson, Mr. Hamp, and myself had the honor of hosting the Winona Elementary third grade class for a field trip. City Hall was included as part of their studies about different branches of government and how they work. The children were given an opportunity to conduct a meeting, complete with an agenda and a public hearing followed by a vote. The subject matter of the public hearing was about allowing pets in school, and much to the appreciation of the teachers, the motion failed in all three groups. I believe Mr. Hamp and Ms. Mayor Henderson enjoyed themselves more than the children.
I got to stand at the podium and make public comment.
Were you supporting the pets in school?
Oh, no, I talked about the poop.
I did support it.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
I've got a few things to talk about as well, and again, brag about for our city. For those who were able to attend, we had a beautiful weekend and a beautiful event for the Fall Foliage Arts Festival. It was great to see a lot of folks downtown, a lot of vendors, a lot of folks out eating and enjoying a beautiful day, and looking at the arts and buying the arts and sharing the arts. So that was great to see, and congratulations to the Shenandoah Valley Arts Center for putting on another great event. They've done it for many years. Also, earlier in the day, the Waynesboro Parks and Rec Department had organized and run the Fall Foliage 5K and 10K. I still have not seen Mr. Allen out there racing with me, but...
Too far back.
Oh, you were ahead. You were way ahead of me. That's probably what it was. But a great attendance. They had 400 runners signed up. And again, a beautiful day for it, nice and cool. And this year was particularly special because we were able to use the new portion of the Greenway. And for those of you who have not been there, I think we talked about this the last time, that we had a kickoff, an opening several weeks ago. And being able to run it was great, and a lot of the runners were very, very pleased with how that course goes now that you're running it on the Greenway. So lots of good things from the Fall Foliage 5 and 10K. We also named the winners of the Run the Valley series, and that is the 4 runs that we have had through Parks and Rec this year. And the combined times and those with the lowest times were the winners. I was not one of the ones with the lowest time, but I did finish all 4 races. I'm proud of that this year. And looking forward to things kicking off in February with the next mud run. So stay tuned. And Mr. Allen, I still expect you to come out.
I'll be there.
All right. Thank you. Oh, and
No,
COVID up.
mask.
Yeah, I'm not wearing a mask. Woohoo! We are green in Waynesboro and Augusta County and Stanton, and most of Virginia. There's a little bit of far southwest that was still yellow. So that is good. Our numbers, if you look at the VDH site, the case numbers are very flat, and on a graph, that's a good sign. We've had ups and downs, from the late summer into the fall, but now things have stayed down nicely. So that's great news, and you can read the recommendations for those folks that are immune compromised or have other things going on. They still may want a mask in public spaces, and of course that's fine. For folks that have not gotten the newest booster, that is encouraged, because we still will probably see a bump come winter. As people are in confined spaces and we don't have the fresh air to get out into anymore, if it's too cold, we very likely will see some bumps. So protect yourself and continue to protect those around you. But for right now, we're looking good.
Thank you,
Mr.
Dr.
Mayor.
Hofstadter.
Yeah, I'll just add that I would also just share my appreciation to Parks and Rec staff and city staff for a great opening of the Greenway. My son and I have been frequenting it often, and it sounds like some ice cream trucks going through it, because we have to go ring, 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 ring as we pass by walkers on it. So it's been very, very popular, and just such a great asset in addition to the city. Just as an update, a week ago Sunday, I spent the day in Richmond with the Virginia Municipal League. We adopted our legislative program for the year. I was able to actually spend some time with Senator McClellan, who is really a champion and a leader in the General Assembly, leading and an advocate for K through 12 capital investment. As you know, we've got
not only our second phase of our high school project at some point in the future, but also many other capital needs in our school system. So I would say that would share that we have continued to have a very strong advocate, both obviously here locally with our local delegation and their support for Virginia stepping up for K through 12 capital investment. Just by way, as a reminder for citizens and taxpayers in our fair city, Virginia currently doesn't contribute a penny towards K through 12 capital investments directly. They offer literary loan programs, and we were grateful in this last session to create some grant opportunities that I hope that our community will be able to benefit from and enjoy. It's certainly not to the scale of the financial resources that are required in order to do a $20, $30, $50 million investment, but nonetheless, I think positive strides, and so just a note for appreciation to our local representatives and as well as all the folks that are looking out and trying to do something meaningful for K through 12. So it was a really positive meeting. It's the number one legislative position and priority for the Virginia Municipal League again, and so we expect to see many, many bills this upcoming session. So,
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
All right, item 6 is to consider approving the consent agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Second.
Dr. Hostetter. Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, item 7 is to hold a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance imposing motor vehicle taxes for the calendar year of 2022. Mr. Hamp, you're on stage.
Excellent. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As part of the annual budget process, you're aware that the council adopts various tax rates. Key rates include real estate, machinery and tools, and personal property. During the presentation, discussion, and subsequent consideration of this year's budget, staff drew particular attention to the personal property tax rate with the assistance of the Commissioner of Revenue, and alerted council to early indications that motor vehicle assessments were increasing substantially, and absent adjustment to the rate, individual tax burdens would likewise increase substantially. The city manager's recommended budget was based on a reduction in the personal property tax from $3.25 per $100 of assessed value to $2.75 per $100 of assessed value. Additionally, at that time, the city manager committed to reporting back to the council once the Commissioner of Revenue had completed or nearly completed the process of assessing personal property, and there was more clarity regarding aggregate revenues and individual tax burdens. On September 28th, the council held a special called meeting and received the most current information regarding the assessment of motor vehicles and the likely revenue and tax implications. At that meeting, and after further review of the motor vehicle tax assessment, the council introduced an ordinance that, if adopted, would establish the personal property rate at $2.65 per 100. This evening, the council will hold a public hearing on the proposed alternative rate of $2.65. And following that public hearing, which is required by law, the council has several options. You may take no action, in which case the current lawfully adopted rate of $2.75 will remain in effect. You may vote to adopt the previously introduced, seconded, and discussed rate of $2.65. Or you may move to amend the introduced ordinance to establish a rate of less than $2.65, and doing so would require a second a discussion and vote. The $2.75 rate, well, that one's actually not in play any longer. Well, excuse me, that'd be helpful for you to know. At $2.75, the council would realize, or the organization would realize, about $700,000 in unappropriated new revenue. At $2.65 per 100, the council or the organization realizes about $500,000 in unappropriated new revenue $2.55 would realize or produce about $300,000 in new unappropriated revenue. My general recommendation is that if council elects a rate that produces revenue that exceeds sort of an equalized outcome, that additional revenue be put toward your stated priorities and guiding principles that we've used over time, and especially this year, in establishing a budget. If you ask for a more specific recommendation, I would recommend that the council adopt $2.65, and that would thereby extending some additional mitigation to individual taxpayers against the substantially increasing assessments. But it also would provide the organization some money that would be available to take additional steps to improve employee compensation through organizational-wide salary increases and wage increases, and additional measures to the implementation of the pay study. A couple of important notes to consider as you make your final consideration of the rate. The ability to separate the motor vehicle tax from machinery and tools and business personal property is only recently authorized by the General Assembly. And previously, those rates had to be identical. In 2025, you'll have to recouple the motor vehicle to the machinery and tools and business property tax rate. So it doesn't constrain you in your action today, but I think it would be helpful to have that knowledge and be aware that in the future you'll have to reunite or recouple those rates. If you have additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can move to the public hearing.
Well, I do. At 265, we're way behind on public salaries in the city of Waynesboro. Our employees are way behind. What would our employees be looking at as far as raises?
So it would be difficult for me to state that with much specificity, but let me give you an outline of generally what will certainly be accomplished and what might be accomplished. So currently, with the adopted budget, the plan is to provide a 3% organizational-wide raise. And the first step in implementing the pay and classification plan. The pay and classification plan has 4 steps. The first step is to bring those employees that now are outside of the pay grade's minimum pay to that minimum pay. So we have about a third of our workforce that are currently being compensated at a rate that's not even in the newly adopted pay bands. So that we have budgeted for that to occur and budgeted to provide a 3% raise. Any additional funds that are realized will be applied to, step me through the priorities that we established, Cameron. The second phase of the pay study, which brings employees to within 10% of market rate, and trying to increase the organizational wide raise by increments of 1%. So we would see if we could move to 4. If there was sufficient funding, we'd try to go to 5. Beyond that, we have some especially intense needs that originate with some attrition and inability to retain employees in public safety and public works, and we would aim to sort of accelerate the implementation of the pay study in those departments according to priority. Cameron, is there anything you want to add or clarify to that, improve to that explanation? So again, that was a lot, so let me reiterate. If you don't do anything, well, that's not an accurate way to say it. The budget currently provides for a 3% raise in the first phase of the pay study. If at 265, we feel fairly confident that we can at least increase the organizational wide raise by 1% at least, and then achieve the second phase of the pay study, and possibly make some progress beyond that. Let's set that plan, the adopted budget, and consideration of the personal property rate aside for a second. Irrespective of those two considerations, Cameron has been monitoring performance in meals and tax and sales, and we know that we will realize some savings because we're changing insurance carriers. We bid the insurance this year. We're going to have savings as a result of the bidding process and the fact that we're changing carriers. We would come to you with a recommendation to apply those revenues and savings to improving the pay and compensation plan as well, or employee pay and compensation as well. That's a lot. Do I need to clarify anything about that, or?
No, I think that's good, but if it went to a lower rate, 260, what does that jeopardize in the 265?
So, remind me of that.
Would say that depending on council's priorities, so it will obviously, once we bring a compensation presentation, be up to council to adopt that presentation. I think that it's probably achievable with the health insurance savings and the meals and sales to work through a little bit more, maybe 1% for the employees in the second phase of the comp study. Where it's going to start to bog down is going to be to get the raise to 5% and then significant adjustments into public safety.
In Public Works. Yeah.
So when you say it's 1%, is that 1% above the 3%?
Yes, sir.
So it's 4%?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay.
And
And maybe even more depending on how the chips fall out in the end, if we work towards a 5%.
I think it becomes less likely to work towards 5 if you go to 260 or lower.
And in the past, we realized more than we budgeted for
That's correct.
off of our,
So in the past, well, I'm sorry, you finished your question, sir.
I would just say, we always bring in more than we budget for. And in a general aspect of that, in an amount would be, like if last year or whatever, we were 200 or better, 200,000 or better of revenue that we hadn't anticipated with the rate that we had.
So in the typical year, we do realize about $150,000 to $200,000 in revenue that's not appropriated. And what typically happens, and that's because our ability, or Cameron's ability, to forecast personal property is very different than it is for real estate. We're working with fewer variables with real estate and much more, we get that more certain information and we get it earlier. So we forecast personal property conservatively to protect ourselves against a missed low. And whatever new additional revenue that you're referring to typically falls to fund balance. I think what's unusual about our conversation this year is the desire, the motivation to try to appropriate that additional revenue to beneficial use immediately and not in the subsequent budget year. But the short answer to your question is yes. Each year, we realize about $150,000 to $200,000 in.
So that's generally a product of not having the assessed values when we do the budget during March. So that 200,000 is wrapped up in the numbers that we're quoting you here.
Because these are the actual assessed values
Correct.
already.
Yes,
So
sir.
these are the real numbers. So there won't be any additional from the year. I had a question actually about the recoupling of the personal property and the business property. Is that fiscal year 2025, or is that calendar year 2025? You know, how far out are we talking that is going to happen?
Do you know? I think it's tax year.
Beginning tax year,
Yes.
ending December
Yes.
31st, 2024.
Yes.
Starting in tax year 2025, which would be budget year
Right, so you would get
2026. Okay.
It's the way the code is written, it's on calendar year.
Okay,
So it does, if we're in a fiscal year, it's going to be in the mid of that calendar year,
So it would
So it'd
actually
be
be
fiscal
budget year.
26.
I think it'd be fiscal 24.
fiscal
Yes.
24.
Okay.
so in real time, when will we be dealing with that question?
March of 2024.
March of 2024.
Yes, because then it would uncouple December 31st of 2024.
Okay, so that 2 years I mean, one more budget and then we have to get them back together. Because that is another concern of mine, is if we make a bigger change, then we've got a bigger bite to have to reabsorb in 2 years. So that's something else to consider.
And I think Sam brings a good point there. If you lower it too much now, in 2024, all that's going to go back to 325, and it'll be a big pill to swallow for all the citizens across the Commonwealth, across the city of Waynesboro at one time. And not a whole lot we can do with that unless you start bringing down another tax, and then you put yourself back into a shortfall.
Well, when you say lower it, when we look at this sheet here, if we equalized it, it would be 252, and we would receive the same amount of money that we had projected from last year, and plus growth.
Yes, sir.
So we wouldn't really be lowering anything, we'd still be getting the same amount of money from the taxpayers. When we move it up to 260, we're still going then from 252, it's 8 cents, up to 260. And we're realizing how much more money from
260.
252 to 260.
260 would be about 400,000 additional over your current appropriation.
And that's set at the number of cars that we're looking at now, correct?
Yes.
And with the growth from different parts of the city with new developments coming in, it's not going to be like we're going to, and I know we've talked about people either deciding to buy new cars now or hold off, like me, and drive another year. But we're going to have a good increase in the number of vehicles in this city, already have, and with this several of the big developments and developments to start that we're looking forward to move, I think we're going to realize even more money that when we say right now, speaking today with the number we have, this is where we're stopping at, but that real number will be more, which might help us pay for moving the compensation even faster.
Well, let me see if I can understand what you're saying, because this year there will not be more, right? I mean, this is the actual numbers for this year.
Right.
So there will not be any additional. Now, next year, there are lots of variables. It's been an unprecedented rise in used car values. Will there be some retreat in used car values? I don't know. I'm not an economist nor a car salesperson, but that's possible. And then, you know, the value, the number of cars may change, but that value may change in a different direction. So, you know, again, we can't count on next year's chickens from this year's eggs.
We can't predict the future, but if we're in a recession, every little bit we can try to help our taxpayers with right now might make a difference. That's all I'm saying.
Anyone else?
I don't think I have anything.
All right, with that, I'm going to open up the public hearing. All right, I'm hereby open the public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance imposed motor vehicle tax rate for the calendar year 2022. Mr. Hamp, do we have a speaker?
No one has signed up to speak, sir.
No one has signed up to speak. Okay. I hereby close the public hearing. All right, any more discussion on this before we go for a motion?
I don't know the point of law here. I'd like to, if we have to vote on it now before, can I do an amendment to lower it to 260?
Well, we have a motion duly seconded on the table now. So you have to either have a friendly amendment that everybody agrees to, or act on the motion and then come up with a motion that ultimately passes if that motion doesn't pass.
Okay, thank you.
So I agree with Mr. Howell that, you know, being cognizant of, you know, the tax rate and what we are getting from residents for vehicles that they've already owned. You know, some folks have bought new vehicles, but many folks have not. So I would come up with the friendly amendment. I made the motion last time. I don't know if it makes any difference I make it or not. I would propose 262, that we retreat a little bit, but that we don't retreat too far. So that would be a compromise I would offer, and I'm open to suggestions or thoughts from other councilmen.
All right, we have a friendly amendment to 262. Is there a second on that?
I'll second the friendly amendment.
Okay, there's
a second for the.
We got a friendly amendment for 262 by Dr. Hosstetter, a second by Mr. Short. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
So do they have to, do they have to vote? Is that just the amendment, or is that the ordinance? We good?
We're good.
Okay.
We're good?
We're
Good? Okay. 262 will be the new rate. Okay, item number 8 is to hold a public hearing upon application by William T. Elder and consider introducing an ordinance to close and vacate approximately 1.6 acres of unimproved street and alley to the east of the intersection of Elkin Circle and 11th Street. Ms. Tate. Oh, look at that, you're already up there.
Move quickly. So yes, this is a request to close and vacate approximately 1.06 acres of unimproved streets and alleys. It's to the east of the intersection of Elkin Circle and East 11th Street in Winchester Heights, between blocks 9 and 10. It would include an unimproved 60-foot right-of-way known as Gun Street, a 30-foot portion of a 60-foot right-of-way for a portion of Hunter Street, and then also a 20-foot unimproved alley that's south of East 11th Street. So you can see the property here. It's to the east of Delphine and south of Main Street, and the property is outlined in red, and those 3 streets, unimproved streets or alleys, are shown in blue that represent the area of the proposal. This just shows kind of its orientation to the east of the city. So for the requirements, council did appoint 3 citizen viewers for this request. 1 viewer report was returned that indicated that abandoning or vacating the streets and alleys would not inconvenience the general public nor negatively affect the abutting landowners. You'll see that the subject property and the public rights-of-way, they're undeveloped, and they were left over from a time when land could all be platted and subdivided without a final plat or the completion of public improvements. So the property at the end of Gun Street is currently divided into 32 lots with those unimproved streets and alleys. So the owner has submitted, in addition to the vacation plat, a major subdivision plat to kind of end Gun Street in a cul-de-sac and reconfigure those 32 lots into 5 developable parcels. This is a little hard to see, kind of, thinking back to this previous image that shows the blue lines. They're kind of shown in a lighter gray there, but this orientation is kind of to show how the cul-de-sac would end, and then you can see in the light gray underneath the existing 32 lots and how they would be reconfigured to create those 5 developable lots. So Gun Street and the alley are in between property that's owned by the applicant. So through this process, the vacation could be conveyed to him. Hunter Street is adjoined by the applicant's property and then also by Trader LLC. So 50% of the Hunter Street right-of-way, so a 60-foot right-of-way, so 30-foot would be conveyed to the applicant, and then code says that the remainder could be conveyed to the abutting property owner at their option, which we haven't heard from them at this time. So I did want to review with you the procedures for the alley or street vacation that are laid out in the code. So the applicant has filed the application, council has appointed the citizen viewers and received the report, the recommendation from the citizen viewer that there is no impact to the public or adjacent property owners. And then it's determined in the code that if the value of the right-of-way or parcel to which the vacated land will be appended is less than $1,000, then the land would be transferred without cost to the applicant. But the code further states that if the value of the right-of-way to which the vacated land would be appended is $1,000 or more, then the land would be sold to the affected landowners for the value as determined by the city assessor. I did note that City Council may waive or reduce the fee and has done so in the past, particularly in instances where it's believed that the public had a strong interest in the right-of-way vacation or would benefit from the proposed use of the land, but not specifically for a private development purpose. So in this instance, staff does not recommend that the fee be waived or reduced. The assessor's office has determined that vacating the streets and alley for this request represents a value of $10,385. So staff would recommend approval of, there was a draft ordinance that was placed in your packets, and that you would introduce the ordinance this evening and hold a public hearing on this request. That's all I have unless you have any questions.
Okay. No questions, then I hereby open the public hearing for vacating property, let me get to where I need to be. Vacating approximately 1.6 acres of unapproved streets and alleys at the east of intersection of Elkins Circle and 11th Street.
Sir, nobody has signed up, but I'm not sure if the applicant is here and wishes to speak. Okay.
Come on up and tell us your name and...
Good evening. My name is William Elder. I am the applicant for the vacation of the streets. I would like to address the value of the land and give a couple of reasons why I feel the land should be discounted or assessed at a different value, because some of the things that are in the assessor's packet to assess land doesn't give her the power to add new information or supporting information to change the value. So I have a couple of things here I just want to go over. I have a plat that Waynesboro gave a gentleman. Waynesboro gave us part of 8th Street. It was an alley to complete his house. He owned the house on each side of the alley or the street, and you guys gave them that for free because it was valued at less than $1,000. So I would ask at least that I have $1,000 knocked off the price because of this being given away in the city of Waynesboro. Also, the land back there was put on a plat 100 years ago, where on the plat it designed it as flat land, and it is very steep back there. So I feel that the value for the land is high because of the condition of the land that it's in, the condition of the property. I have that here if somebody would want to see it, of how steep the property is back there. And it does benefit Waynesboro for me to develop the land, because as of right now, the last 2 owners have not been able to see the vision of the property. And I see the property in its vision today that we can develop it and put 5 houses on it. I would ask for consideration to lower the price of the land so that doesn't slow the project or burden the project with a $10,000 bill to continue through.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I hereby close the public hearing. We heard from the applicant there, and he's asking for a little relief. How do we handle that?
I would ask the attorney for guidance in that regard.
Like we did a minute ago, we have if somebody wanted to introduce a motion to, apply a waiver in either of X amount or the full amount, or however, they wanted to structure the motion, a second, and discussion and vote on it. Just
Okay.
Want to get information from the assessor before we did that?
Yes,
What was that?
assessor information.
Yes, we get back with the assessor and check her work and see what she might know about it
Yes.
before we make that motion.
Or if we wanted to push forward tonight, you want to just knock the $1,000 off as he requested and let him start his work?
I'm good with that.
All right, I'll make just make a motion? Okay, I'll make a motion that we reduce the property, or the sale price of the land to $9,385.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And now we need to vote on the, or do we just vote on that?
I think we're just introducing.
Just introducing, okay. All right, so we've talked about the land value, so we've got a first and a second. We'll bring this up at our next meeting.
Actually, I
No,
don't
you
think
need a motion
anybody's
to
actually introduced the ordinance.
Yes, I'll go and introduce the ordinance at the revised valuation
Okay, all right.
to approve the vacation.
All right, is there a second to approve the vacation?
I will approve that, or I will second that, rather.
Thank you, Dr. Hostetler. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Any opposed? Nobody opposed. Motion still carries 5-0.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay. All right. Item 9 is to consider adopting a resolution supporting the city's application to the Growth and Accessibility Planning Technical Assistance Program for a citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan. Ms. Tate, you're up again.
This is a simple one, so I don't have a PowerPoint. So the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investments, Growth and Accessibility Planning, GAP, as they refer to it, Technical Assistance Program, has applications open for technical assistance. And the aim of this program is to support Virginia localities while advancing the goals of the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment. The GAP program's goal specifically is to align infrastructure development with designed and designated urban development areas, or UDAs, to improve efficiency and effectiveness. And it does this by providing technical assistance-based grants in 4 kind of component categories. So one is multimodal planning within existing or planned growth areas. The second is to develop or evaluate strategies to address emerging planning issues. The third is to develop accessibility planning process. And fourth component is to conduct multimodal planning outside of urbanized areas, so in our rural areas of Virginia. The GAP Technical Assistance Program does not require a local match. The maximum amount of technical assistance that could be awarded would be up to $100,000, and again, does not require any local match. The application is due on October 31st, and staff has begun to look through that application and kind of develop answers to those questions. And so what the Community Development Department would like to seek funding for through GAP Technical Assistance would be under that component 1, so under multimodal planning within existing growth areas as the city is. And we'd like to undertake, or ask to undertake, a comprehensive citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan. We see this being a very important exercise. There's been a lot of progress made in the past several years, and somewhat disjointed in the fact that there have been various plans that have looked at this. So we really see this as the ability to have some technical assistance and some public and community support to say, where do we have funded projects? Where do we have lines just drawn on a map? Get all of those in one spot and then look at where those gaps exist, and specifically where safety issues exist. I know we think about this from a recreational standpoint, but truly in this case from just a standpoint of how people transport and get around to jobs and recreation and other things. So we see this as a plan that we would use to prioritize future projects and grant applications as we work through VDOT open funding applications. And then also we would use it to talk with our development community as projects come on board to say this is the approved plan of the city and this is the infrastructure that we're interested in seeing. So with that application, it does require a resolution of support from City Council for us as staff to submit that application. So that's what we're requesting tonight.
Perfect. Any questions?
I think it's a great idea. We've had lots of conversations about pedestrian crossings and the difficulty. I spoke with a resident who can see Westwood Hills from their house, but their child cannot walk there safely without having to walk backwards up and around several blocks. So getting a chance to get a comprehensive plan would be great, so I'd be in favor.
Perfect. So can I get a motion to adopt a resolution of support for the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment Growth and Accessibility Planning Technical Assistance Program application? You made a lot of words there.
I will be glad to make that motion if I don't have to say it.
Thank you, Dr. Hossetter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any discussion?
Just, everybody, I'll be abstaining as an employee of the Virginia Department of Transportation. OIP falls under the umbrella of VDOT. So.
Thank you, Terry. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0, one abstaining. Item number 10 is to consider introducing the following appropriation ordinances totaling $16,387. A, appropriating $9,300 in donation for supplies for the Victim Witness Department. B, appropriating $3,912 in recovery costs to the general fund for the continuing education for the police department. C, appropriating $3,175 in restricted fund balance to the general fund for operating supplies for the sheriff's office. Mr. McCormick, this one's you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it's all right, I'll go ahead and get items 10A and 11 out of the way since they're all appropriation ordinances. All the ordinances, all 5 of the ordinances in front of you this evening are to amend the 2023 budget. Item 10 can be introduced and seconded during this meeting. We'll need to go to the consent agenda on your next meeting if council introduces in seconds. It's for general items, general supplies, donations and recovered costs for the PD, the Sheriff's Department, and the Victim Witness Program. And then the larger item, number 11, is to appropriate $582,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Water Fund to engineer a raw water tank. During February of last fiscal year, we actually appropriated these funds and put a request for proposal out to hopefully encumber these funds by the end of the year. We did not get that solicitation done by the end of the year, so that appropriation lapsed. This just appropriates those funds. As a reminder, the estimate on that project is still roughly $3.5 million in total. This is just for the engineering. Roughly $1 million in that would be supported by net position of the water fund, with the other $2.5 million coming from American Rescue Plan Act funds, and then there's $40,000 in that appropriation that make the total of $622,000 for the tourism grant, for a tourism grant that for programmatic advertising that the city was awarded through state funds.
Any discussion on any of that? Okay. All right, so we're going to be making our first motion on items 10A, B, and C, and I'll need a first and a second, and then we'll bring this up again on October 24th. So I have a motion to approve item 10.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. And this motion will be carried over till our October 24th meeting. The next one, item 11 that Mr. McCormick talked about, we can pass tonight. So is there a motion to approve item 11 and consider adopting the 2 items that he listed in his?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Item 12 is to consider adopting a resolution establishing a tax rate,
Rate
of tax relief, wow, a rate of tax relief for tax year 2022 as required by personal property tax code, and tonight we discussed $2.62.
This is different.
Is there a motion? Mr. Hamp.
So the abbreviated version, you're familiar that each year under the Personal Property Tax Relief Program Act, the council must adopt by resolution the rate of relief. Your packet contained a resolution that anticipated a rate of $2.65. I would like to thank Commissioner of Revenue, Sabrina Von Schilling, for her attendance tonight. She has calculated a revised rate of relief based on a tax rate of $2.62. and that rate of relief is 38%. So you consider, the resolution, here, I'll give that to the mayor, is for 38% relief.
38% relief, okay. All right. Any information from Mr. Hamp? You guys good? All right. Is there a motion to approve the rate of tax relief?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. And then number 13, this one belongs to you, Mr. Hamp.
I don't have anything this evening, sir.
Nothing. Okay, do we have anyone signed up for citizen comment?
We do not.
Do not. All right, so the last business for tonight is, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll make it.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
What was he